Okay, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, first lesson back after Ramadan. You had a nice long break. Now, as I told you guys before Ramadan, that you guys will have a test inshallah. And thinking about it, what we'll do is that you'll have your test as soon as you finish Hadith Jibreel inshallah. Now, Hadith Jibreel, we should finish 3 or 4 lessons. 3 or 4 more lessons. Inshallah, we should finish Hadith Jibreel bi'idhnillah. Today, what we'll do is that we'll have a revision session, inshallah. Okay? Because now we've taken a lot, so we'll do a revision session. And the revision session starts from the introduction of Imam Nawawi rahimahullah, and in the first hadith, and also the Hadith Jibreel as well. Okay? Obviously, the worksheets that I'm sending out, the first 100 pages is an introduction to Hadith, which is basically the other course that we took. The exam's not on that. Okay? There's no exam on that, inshallah. The exam starts from, I think it's page 115 and on the worksheets, where it says introduction of Imam An-Nawawi. Imam Nawawi's explanation, or Imam Nawawi's introduction, what he wrote, inshallah. And revision session, normally, as you guys know, I don't let you open up anything or look in, but because we've taken quite a lot, I'm going to let you guys keep your books open. So if I ask questions, you can look in, because we don't have the time to be, spending too long on it, because we've got a lot to take. And I'll try my best to go over as much as we can, inshallah. If there's anything I missed, just let me know. We'll go over it. So the idea today is try to go over everything that we've taken so far, so that I don't expect you to memorize everything today, but at least you're familiar with everything and what could come in the exam, inshallah. So then what we need to do is that during the next week, just try to revise as much as you can, and then inshallah we'll take Hadith Jibreel. Yawm al-Akhir, we're not going to take too long on it. Yawm al-Akhir should be quite quick. Because the issue with Yawm al-Akhir is if you want to go in detail, then that's like another 10 lessons. So the idea is just to go over just an overview of what it is, and just mention what each topics are without actually going into them. Al-Qadr, Qada and Qadr should only be 1 lesson. Ihsan should be 1 lesson, and the rest of the hadith after that should be 1 lesson as well. So then after that, inshallah, then we'll give you an exam on the introduction of Nawawi, hadith number 1, and hadith Jibreel, inshallah. Then after that, we'll continue with hadith number 3 onwards. And as I mentioned to you before, that it's mainly hadith number 1 and hadith Jibreel where we're going into a lot of detail. After that, each hadith shouldn't be more than 1 lesson. Maybe the odd hadith here and there might be 2 lessons, but most of the hadith will just be 1 lesson, inshallah. And as for the timing of the class, we used to do, after Maghrib, but I'm going to try my best to do after Asr. For a couple of reasons. Firstly, after Maghrib, it sometimes finishes a bit too late, especially now Isha is going to get later. Isha is going to be at 11, so finishing at 11 is a bit late. And secondly, after Asr, we have like a longer time as well. So after Maghrib, we'll be restricted to just a 1 hour lesson. After Asr, we can have a longer lesson. So for example, if today's revision session goes on for 2 hours, we have the time to do that, right? And then going on to 4 hours, and we can stay till Isha if you guys want. Okay. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We'll start with the introduction of Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah. Now, I'm not necessarily going to read every single thing that he says, right? But obviously his introduction praises Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and salam wa and so on. Then he gives a small introduction to testifying the Shahadatain. And then he does mention something which I've underlined on page 115, which is that while he's praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentions how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given comprehensive speech. Right? You see that underlined. So underneath that, there was a space for you guys to write what is comprehensive speech. So in Arabic, who remembers what's comprehensive speech in Arabic? Huh? Riyadh? Jawami'u al-kalim. Jawami'u al-kalim. Jawami'u al-kalim is something that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given, and know what the Prophet was given. So there's some hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he says, I've been given 5 things, and maybe in some narration 6, where he says, I've been given five things that no other prophet before me has been given. And from those things, he says, وَأَعْطِيتُ جَوَامِعَ الْكَلِمِ, that I've been given جَوَامِعَ الْكَلِمِ, comprehensive speech. Okay. Now, what is comprehensive speech? Comprehensive speech is, who knows? Riyadh? Where speech is a little, but the meaning is vast. يعني لفظه قليل ومعناه كثير. The wording is little, but the meaning is a lot. Okay, and you guys can see that hadith number one, إنما الأعمال بالنيات, how many principles and how many different areas did that hadith apply? That's why Imam Shafi'i said that that hadith enters into 70 chapters of fiqh. So that is comprehensive speech. By the way, I don't have all of my notes with me, so I can't remember if I miss anything, I'll let me know. Or if I add things, then I've added things. But Jami' al-Kalim, Ibn Rajab rahimahullah, he mentions Jami' al-Kalim is of two types. Did I mention that? No. No? All right. You can add this in. He says Jami' al-Kalim is of two types. He mentions this in his introduction to the 40 Hadith of An-Nawawi. And he says basically, in simple terms, Jami' al-Kalim, he says the first is the Quran. Because the Prophet was given the Quran. The Prophet was given the Quran, right? And the second is the ahadith. Those ahadith which would fall under this definition of Jawami'u al-Kalim. So both are Jami' al-Kalim. That's why the Quran is so. Obviously, the Quran is the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so it has an even higher status and it's more profound and has more balagha and has a more vast, deeper meaning than the ahadith. But still, the ahadith does have Jawami'u al-Kalim in there as well. Anything else we mentioned for this part here? For the introduction. Just for this paragraph here. No, that was it. May blessings and peace of Allah be upon the prophets and messengers, the families and righteous people. Did we say anything about that? No? Okay, that's fine then. I don't want to add stuff if we've not really taken it. Right, then he mentions all these ahadith regarding, so let's take the first one. If you go to the next page, the one in bold, where the Prophet said, whoever preserves for my nation 40 ahadith concerning his religion, Allah will resurrect him on the day of resurrection among the group of jurists and scholars. Okay, and then he mentions different narrations and so on. So these ahadith, firstly, what do these ahadith show, that all these different narrations? Huh? What does it show? Like, why is he mentioning all these ahadith? It's the reason for why he wrote the book. We're going to get to that. But what does these ahadith show? Like, the virtues of gathering 40 ahadith. So books on 40 ahadith. Now we did say that these ahadith are weak. All these ahadith are weak. So even though he mentioned them, they are weak according to whom? Are weak according to which scholar? According to all of the muhaddithin. Yeah, according to all of the muhaddithin, they're weak. So somebody may say that why is he basing a whole book upon a weak hadith? He's not basing it just upon this hadith. He's got other proofs of it. What's his other proofs? Yeah, so there's obviously those are hadiths which are general regarding preserving hadith and narrating hadith. So all those are hadiths which are general regarding preserving hadith and narrating hadith, obviously they would apply. Likewise, he used the actions of the Salaf. Many of the Salaf wrote books, which is going to come. See, he mentioned the next page, right? So at the bottom of page 116, he says the hadith the scholars have agreed is weak. And in the next page, he says the scholars have compiled within this context countless collections. The first of them, which are known to do so, is Abdullah Mubarak. Then he mentions so many other names. Okay, so basically, there are three reasons, right? There's a weak hadith that he uses. Now, he says that scholars can act upon weak hadith, and we obviously, we talked about the ruling on acting on weak hadith, but that's one of the proofs, but it's not the only proof. And then he mentions the actions of the Salaf, the many of the Salaf, and he mentioned that Abdullah Mubarak, Al-Ajurri, and Daraqutni, Hakim, great scholars. They've written books of 40 ahadith. And then after that, at the bottom of page 117, he mentions the general ahadith regarding preserving hadith and narrating hadith. Right? So when you put all these points together, then he decided to write this book. On page 118, he mentions that he said, then there were some scholars who collected 40 hadith on the fundamentals of the religion, while others did so on derived matters, others on jihad, others on asceticism, others on conduct, others on speeches, and so on. So he says that those scholars that wrote 40 hadith, they would normally talk about one topic. So 40 hadith regarding this topic, 40 hadith regarding salah, 40 hadith regarding this, 40 hadith regarding like a specific topic. And that's why he says, and all of them are sound objectives, meaning good objectives. May Allah be pleased with those who intended them. But I have considered collecting 40 more important than all of those, and they will be 40 hadith inclusive of all of that. He's saying that's good. Like you get 40 hadith for salah, you got 40 hadith for wudu, you got 40 hadith for seeking knowledge, you got 40 hadith for this, 40 hadith on zuhud. That's all good. But my objective is, inshallah, more important than that, which is I want 40 hadith which encompass the whole religion, which are the foundation of the whole religion. 40 hadith which are the basis of the religion. Each hadith is a foundation hadith in each chapter or part of the religion. And then he also mentions that furthermore, I would commit myself regarding these 40 hadith to their being authentic. So he said, and these 42, obviously when you say 40, it's actually 42 hadith. Some say 43, we'll get to that hadith. Because one hadith he mentions like 2 narrations of it. Somebody may say, but I thought it's 40. But the Arabs would round up. They would round up, so there's not an issue in that, inshallah. But he says that these hadith 42 or 43, according to him, are all authentic. According to him, are all authentic. Is that the case? Are they all authentic? No. How many are authentic? How many are not? 29? 29 Bukhari Muslim. Okay. And the rest are not authentic. I'm sure I mentioned this. Anyone got it, Tanzil? Got anything regarding this? How many hadith are authentic? How many are not? No? Rayyan? So I'm not going to say the exact number, but majority of them are authentic. But there might be a couple, I'm not going to say the exact number. Find out, listen to the recording. Okay? Which are not authentic. According to Imam Nawawi, they're authentic, but the meanings are still correct. The meanings are still correct. Because these are hadith, the foundation hadith of the religion. Therefore, even if the hadith might be weak, you'll easily find other hadith or you'll find other ayat, right? Which will correspond to the same thing. Okay? No. Right. Then on page 119, he finishes off the introduction. And I believe after this, I summarized his introduction. I said that he mentioned, I think it was 7 points. And I got those 7 points down. So basically, after the introduction, I said, look, from this introduction, we can learn that his methodology can be in this book. And I think it was 7 points. There were 7 points, right? So what are they? Read them up. So firstly, 40 hadith. Yani 42, but rounded to 40. What else?
Those hadith are regarding the whole religion.
Okay, and these are hadith are regarding the whole religion, so they're not restricted to a certain topic.
Every hadith mentioned is regarding the foundation of that topic.
Yeah, so not only are the different topics, but the foundational hadith in those topics. So when it comes to intentions, An-Nawawiyyah is a foundation hadith in that chapter. There's so many other hadith regarding intentions, having the right intention, wrong intention, but what's the foundation hadith? إنما الأعمال بالنيات. The levels of the religion regarding Islam, Iman, Ihsan. There's ayat. What's the foundation hadith? Hadith Jibreel. 5 pillars of Islam. Obviously, hadith Jibreel can come into that, but then we have hadith number 3, and so on. Innovations, so many hadith. The foundation hadith would be hadith number 5, and so on. Now,
they are all authentic.
Number 4 is that they are all authentic according to him, and that is the case generally. but there are a couple which aren't, which we'll discuss once we get to there, inshallah. And but even if they are weak, then the meanings are still correct. Now,
Majority are the
this is number
five.
number 5. Majority are in Bukhari and Muslim. How many? 29. So out of the 42, 29 are in Bukhari and Muslim. So the ones which aren't in Bukhari and Muslim are 15. Now, just because the hadith is not in Bukhari and Muslim, does that mean it's not authentic? No. Right? So this is authentic. Now,
You remove the isnad.
now this is point number 6. Yeah?
Yeah.
Number 6 is that he removed the isnad. So we didn't read it right now, but in this introduction, he said he removed the isnad. What's the isnad? The whole chain of narration. So when Imam Bukhari would write a hadith, he would say, حدثنا فلان عن قال حدث فلان قال حدث his teacher, Sahabi, and so on. Got rid of all of that. And he just left the Sahabi. He just left the companion. And that's how most people narrate hadith now as well. Because why? Because this book is a beginner's book. There's no need, like a general person and even a beginner student of knowledge, he just needs to know what to believe. And he needs to know the lessons. He doesn't need to go into all of the narrators right now. In the future, yes. And on top of that, it's a secondary book. Yani if anybody wanted, Al-Arba'een is not a primary source of hadith. It's a secondary source of hadith. Primary source of hadith will be Bukhari, Muslim, and so on, right? So if somebody wanted to know the chain of narration, he mentions narrator of Bukhari and Muslim and so on. So you can easily go back to those books and you'll find the whole chain narration, and you got the explanations of Bukhari and Muslim which talk about the narrators and so on. Now,
Number 7, after the 42, he mentions the hard words.
yeah. So point number 7, and he mentioned this introduction, is after the 42 hadith, he explained some of the hard words in those hadith. Now, this explanation is not found in every single copy of the book. Allah alam, I'm not like expert in manuscripts, but I don't think it's found in every single manuscript either. That's why Shaykh Qasim, if you're memorizing from his copy, he doesn't have it at the end. He does not have it at the end. I think I asked him once regarding this and regarding some other books as well, like Kitab al-Tawheed al-Masail at the end, in some books. And the Shaykh, he just said that it's not from the asl of the book. Meaning, from what I understand from that is that the main manuscripts he used, they maybe weren't found in that. That's why he didn't add in. But you'll find it in some books, you won't find it in other books. We'll see if we go through them or not, inshallah. Shaykh Usaimi, when he teaches, he has it in his. I mean, they read it. He doesn't really explain it that much, but comments here and there, but we do read it. Okay, so these are the 7 points that he mentioned. Do you mention anything else?
All of them.
Or what have you missed so far?
The explanation of the book, specialty of the book.
Okay, that's the next page. No?
So
No.
we did his introduction first. When you were teaching first, you did the introduction last. And before that, you did an explanation of the book, edition of the book.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. I missed all that, on it. So where do we start from?
We started from 42.
No, when I was teaching, where do we start from? Oh, did we take all of that? Okay, we took all of that, right. That's the issue of teaching more than one class. You forget where you start from. Okay, so we need to go back to where? Which page? 103. Second introduction, the author of the book. Okay. Right. Another thing which you could maybe add on when you talk about the methodology, it's not in the 7 points, but you can add it in as like an extra point, which he didn't mention, is that Imam Nawawi would mention the reference of the hadith after narrating it. Yeah, so he would say it's narrated by Bukhari, Muslim, narrated by Tirmidhi, and so on. He would mention it. And sometimes he would mention the ruling of the hadith as well. Okay, so page 104. So if you go back to page 104, so we're going to talk about Imam Nawawi himself. Good, right. So obviously, if you don't have these worksheets, you're struggling a bit, right? His name Yahya ibn Sharaf ibn Muri. Obviously, got his whole name there, Ibn Hassan, Ibn Hussein, and so on. I don't need the whole name. Yahya ibn Sharaf, Ibn Muri, An-Nawawi al-Dimashqi should suffice, inshallah. There's two ways of saying Nawawi. You can say Nawawi and you can say An-Nawawi. An-Nawawi, both ways are correct. And why is he called An-Nawawi? It's referring to a place called An-Nawa, which is where? Near Damascus. Near Damascus, good. What was his laqab? Muhyi ad-Din. But he didn't, he was given this laqab during his lifetime, but he didn't like it. Okay, but if he was given that title during his lifetime, it shows that people acknowledge his station even whilst he was alive, which is rare. Knowing people, acknowledge somebody's status after they pass away. For whatever reason it may be. Sometimes due to jealousy, sometimes it's due to just not appreciating the status. But for somebody to get that status during their lifetime, something great. What was his kunya? Abu Zakaria. Abu Zakaria. This happens a lot, especially with those who are not those whose names are Yahya. They'll take the kunya Zakaria. Zakaria alayhi salam was the father of Yahya alayhi salam. Right. His upbringing, you can just read. Everything is written here. You can just read that yourself, inshallah. Um, uh,
How do you put Abu Zakariya if they have children?
you can take a kunya. You need to know children.
Is it a point?
Yeah. What's the kunya of Aisha رضي عنها? Yeah. She didn't have any children. We'll take that. When the Hadith number 5, we'll talk about that as well. How she's called Abdullah and she didn't have children. Allah barak, you're using that, yeah? Imam Nawawi didn't get married. So we don't need to get married. Right. I've put benefit man dalla ala khair falahu mithlu ajri fa'ilih, that the one who guides you something good has the reward of the similar to the one doing it on page 105. We mentioned that because of the the, the story of Imam Nawawi was, a man was basically walking past. Imam Nawawi wasn't playing with the people, so he spoke to him and tested Imam Nawawi and realized that he's really bright and clever. So he went to his father and told him that he should make him seek knowledge, and then he went out to seek knowledge. So this guy that was walking, and I think it was a sheikh as well, but he didn't teach Imam Nawawi. He just saw potential, and then he advised the father to make him seek knowledge. And then that caused, with the permission of Allah, Imam Nawawi to seek knowledge. So subhanAllah, all the reward Imam Nawawi is going to whom? That man who was just walking by. But because he saw opportunity to guide to something good, then he will gain that good. He'll gain that reward as well, inshallah. Talk about some of his teachers, all the his desire and craving for learning. They say that he used to read 12 lessons a day, and he used to learn 12 lessons a day. I think teach 12 lessons a day. And so that, if you look at the main thing that you take away from his biography is sincerity, how he was sincere, and secondly, how he never wasted his time. And these are from the two most important characteristics that a student of knowledge needs to have. That's why on the next page we talked about not wasting your time. Okay, his most important works, we talked about these books. The first 5 books are regarding Hadith. Then we talk about some of the fiqh books, and then some other books as well. Al-Minhaj, Sharh Sahih Muslim ibn Hajjaj. So what's the main explanation of Bukhari? Fath al-Bari by Ibn Hajar. What's the main explanation of Sahih Muslim? Al-Minhaj by Imam Nawawi. So he's got, and Al-Minhaj you can get in like 6 volumes, 7 volumes, 8 volumes, and so on. But Fath al-Bari is what? About 20 volumes, depending on the print. But even though it's, Al-Minhaj is not as big, it's actually considered one of the main explanations of Sahih Muslim. SubhanAllah, his explanations weren't even that long of each hadith. They were quite short, to be honest. And the beginning of the book, they were a bit longer than the end of the book. Towards the end, he just got really concise and so on. But there's a lot of barakah in that book. And it's actually, like, when I was studying it, was one of my favorite books to read. It's very concise, but to the point, and there's so much fawaid in that book. You got his books, Rawat al-Talibin, Minhaj al-Talibin, Al-Majmu' Sharh al-Muhadhab. And then he's got some books in some other books. Last book, At-Tibyan fi Adabi Hamlet al-Quran, is a very important book for you guys to study. It's not a difficult book. It basically talks about the etiquette of the one who carries the Quran, the person of the Quran. Yeah, student of knowledge. Okay, it's a very important book, but he focuses a bit more on Quran. In Quran, there's two books that come to mind straight away regarding the adab. This is one, At-Tibyan fi Adabi Hamlet al-Quran, and the other is I think called Akhlaqu Hamlet al-Quran, I think, by Imam al-Ajurri. I think it's called Akhlaqu Hamlet al-Quran. These are the two very important books regarding the adab of the Quran. Right, we talked about his aqidah, and he had the aqidah of Ahlul Sunnah alhamdulillah, but in a few there's a few times where he did ta'wil. He interpreted some of the sifat, but we say that still doesn't make him an Ash'ari, that he's still from the circle of Ahlul Sunnah. Why is that? We mentioned for three reasons. Firstly, we found in his later works statements which indicate that he retracted from that. So we find statements that he retracted from it. Secondly, the reason why he may have interpreted some of those sifat was not the same reason why Ahlul Bid'ah do so. I.e., his methodology was not the same methodology of the Ash'ari of Ahlul Bid'ah. Right? And just because a certain person makes and that's why the third point is that we consider them to be mistakes. We don't consider him to be upon their methodology. So if somebody, right, makes a mistake, and that mistake he now ends up being the same opinion as what Ahlul Bid'ah, some Ahlul Bid'ah would take, does that make a person from Ahlul Bid'ah? No, it doesn't. And the Sheikh Salih Sindi would say this a lot, and it's very important. He would say, a Sunni is still a Sunni if he makes a mistake. A Sunni makes a mistake, it's a mistake, but it's still a Sunni. It's just a mistake. Whereas if Ahlul Bid'ah makes a mistake, if a Mubtadi' makes a mistake, then that is not a mistake, this is because of his bid'ah. Right? Meaning, we have one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If a Mubtadi' comes and he does ta'wil, why is he doing ta'wil? Because he's from Ahlul Bid'ah, that's his methodology. But if somebody from Ahlul Sunnah comes, and let's say out of 100 or 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or however many names, all of them are correct, but one or two, he makes a mistake, he interprets them. Now, does that make him from Ahlul Bid'ah? No, it doesn't. It's a mistake. We say he was mistaken in this. And there's many reasons why a person could do so. Maybe that was his own ijtihad in that particular name. Maybe he came across some hadith he thought to be authentic. Maybe it's because of the environment that he was in. And that happens a lot. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, sometimes, because in his early life, in the beginning of his life, he leaned more towards being a Sufi. So therefore, in his works later on, when he came to Ahlul Sunnah, you'll find sometimes the wording that he would use, some wordings were still the same wording and terminology of the Sufis. Now, does that make him Sufi? No, but it's just because that's what he was brought up upon. He was used to that terminology. He would sometimes use those words. For example, he would say Al-Arifu Billah. Al-Arif Billah, somebody who knows Allah. Ahlul Sunnah don't really use that terminology. He would say Al-Alim Billah, somebody who has knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or would use other terminologies, but it's because of the environment and so on. So these are the three reasons, right? Firstly, he retracted. Secondly, his methodology was not the same. For example, he didn't say that we reject khabar ahad, for example. We didn't have that method. And likewise, other methodological points, Ahlul Bid'ah, he didn't agree with them. And thirdly, we consider it to be a mistake. Passed away in the year 676. Yeah? So he was 45 years old when he passed away. Okay, we had introduction regarding the book Arba'eenat. There are many, we already talked about this, there's many Arba'eenat. Many Arba'eenat, i.e. many scholars have written a hadith where they've gathered 40 hadith. The asl of this book, right? The asl of this book, who remembers? Ibn al-Salah. Al-Hafidh Ibn al-Salah, if you study hadith, you have to know who he is because he's got the main book in Mustalah al-Hadith. They just call it Muqaddimat Ibn Salah. Everyone who came after used that book. Ibn Hajar used it and so on. Mustalah al-Hadith, just for a quick summary, it went through three main developments. The first was by Khatib al-Baghdadi. The second was by Hafidh Ibn Salah, and then the third was by Hafidh Ibn Hajar. Anyways, Hafidh Ibn Hajar, he gathered his students and he said that this gathering, I'm going to mention to you 26 ahadith, which are the foundational ahadith of all the religion. So he mentioned 26 ahadith. Imam Nawawi rahimahullah came along later, took these 26 and added 15 to them. Sorry, added 16 to them, which made 42. Okay? And then if you want Hafiz ibn Hajar, Imam Ibn Rajab rahimahullah, he came along later and he added 8 more. He made 50, then he explained all 50 in his famous book, Jami' Ulum al-Hikam. Okay? But most ulama, some ulama, so that's why some ulama, when they explain 40 hadith of Nawawi, some stop where Imam Nawawi stopped at 42, and some also explain the extra of Ibn Rajab, alhamdulillah, 8 extra that he added, and inshallah, the plan is that we go through those 8 extra ones as well, inshallah. But if you want those 8 extra, Ibn Rajab's explanation, Jami' Ulum al-Hikam, is very thick. I've got this one here, this is a summary of it. One scholar came and he summarized it, but you can get it in a very, very thick volume. And I think it is translated into English, again, in a very, like, this thick volume. Jami' Ulum al-Hikam, I think they've translated it to anyone know what it's called in English? The Compendium of Knowledge and Wisdom. Yeah, something like that. Okay. How many ahadith are in the book of Al-Arba'een? We've explained that. Faida, attributing the benefit to his companion. So, if Imam Nawawi has taken these ahadith, majority of them from Ibn Salah, isn't that plagiarism? No, it's not, because in his other works he mentioned this, that I've taken it from him. Right? So he's not trying to claim it to be his own book. That shows the importance of attributing knowledge to its companion, like to the person. Whenever you take knowledge, don't try to make it seem like it's your own. Now, does that mean every single small detail you have to? No, not everything. The things which are well known in many books, you don't always have to mention. But when you come to like fawaid and gharaib and things which aren't mentioned as much, then you should always mention that, yeah, I took it from this person, took it from this teacher, and so on. Okay, and that's when you have barakah in your knowledge. That's when you'll find barakah in your knowledge, and that also shows sincerity as well. That you're not trying to claim knowledge for yourself, but when needed, you attribute it to the person where you took it from. Right, the explanations of this book are many. Jami' Ulum al-Hikam Ibn Rajab is the main explanation. It goes into a lot of detail and a lot of aqwal of salaf in there. And then after him, there are many other ulama. So many ulama have explained it, especially from the contemporary ulama. Right? Before, like the earlier explanations, you got Ibn Daqiq al-Eid. It's got a good explanation. His is very, very small. I don't have it with me, but it's like very small. And there's many others. Contemporary scholars, you have so many. Ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah. Ibn Uthaymin is nice because he's got kind of he's got everything in there. So all types of fawaid, not just one type. So for example, Shaykh al-Muhsin al-Abbad, he's got a very, very nice explanation. His is one which is very nice. Shaykh al-Muhsin al-Abbad, and it's translated into English as well. His explanation I really like. But his explanation, because he's a muhaddith, is a bit more hadithi. He has everything else in it, obviously, when it needed, but he has like a bit more hadith benefits. But Ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah kind of has everything. Shaykh Fawzan's got an explanation which is very good and easy. For a beginner who's trying to learn Arabic, I would always recommend Shaykh Fawzan's before Ibn Uthaymin's. I believe Fawzan, his Arabic is easier for 2 reasons. The Arabic itself is easier. Secondly, the way he explains it is that he takes his time explaining something. So a concept, he'll take his time explaining instead of just mentioning it and moving on. So it allows you to understand it a bit easier as well. Now, any other explanations I mentioned? There's so many. Khudair, again, very good, but is a bit higher. Is a bit more hadithi. I wouldn't recommend it for the first one, but later, if you study the book a few times, then you want to add stuff. Inshallah, Khudair. Now, what else? Ishbili, that's a bit older now. What else? Atara. What else? Mulaqin. What else? Tulfi. Okay. And the ones that we just mentioned right now are a bit more older. And if you just stick to what I said, and like if you stick to many Ibn Uthaymin rahimahullah, Shaykh Fawzan's, it'll suffice. It's enough. And Khudair and so on. But Al-Arba'een is that type of book where every time you study it, there's all these new benefits that you can add. All these new benefits. So even what I've done, hadith with you so far, there's easily you can add so much more benefit. Right? Even in like some of the points, like the takhrij of the hadith and so on, I went later on and read a bit more and I found more benefits and I was like, oh, I can add even more in, but then I thought, I don't want to add more. It's already a lot. But Arba'een is that type of book. Why? Because for example, Jawami' al-Kalim. He spoke Jawami' al-Kalim. The specialty of this book, what are they? Riyadh.
All the hadith you mentioned are considered Jawami al-Kalim.
Yeah. So specialty of the book is different to the conditions of the book or methodology of the book. This just basically means now, from an outside perspective, what's special about this book, which is not necessarily in other books. Okay. So the first is all the hadith in there are considered Jawami' al-Kalim. And there's very few hadith books like that. Obviously now contemporary scholars are writing more books like that. But generally throughout Islamic history, is one of the few books that focus on Jawami' al-Kalim. Now, what else? The religion revolves around this hadith now.
Majority of the hadith are authentic.
Majority are authentic now.
Or they're easy to memorize.
And they're easy to memorize. And the hadith are easy to memorize. And you guys should be memorizing. Okay? You should be ahead. You should easily be on hadith 15 by now, minimum. Yeah? Where have you reached?
I went backwards.
Went backwards.
I memorized that quite a bit a long time ago. I went backwards.
Okay. Tanzil?
Finish
Finish let me know. Naeem? 25. رفيقا? 3? No, Barak is good, but try to be ahead. You know why? Because once you finish Hadith Jibreel, خلاص. But once we get to after Hadith Jibreel, it's going to be one Hadith per lesson, then it's going to be a lot for you to memorize. Because every lesson you got to memorize Hadith. And most of them aren't as long as Hadith Jibreel, but some are. Hadith number 24 is quite long, so 3 pages. Or 2.5. يا عبادي كلكم ضالوا إلا من هديت that hadith. And then the revision is going to get difficult as well. The revision gets difficult. Not the hadith itself, but memorizing who is narrated which hadith, which book is it in. That's the difficult part. Okay, Arba'een is one of those books that it takes time for you to get used to that. Especially if you're not used to memorizing hadith. So my advice is, get ahead. If you've not started to memorize, don't worry, we're still on hadith number 2, so start memorizing. Okay? But make sure you guys get ahead. Always try to be ahead of the lesson. Okay, and especially now, you should have been at least 10 hadith, 15 hadith ahead. No, the intro you don't have to memorize. Just the hadith. That's the main thing. Okay? Right, conditions, these are the 7 points, right? Okay, so the 7 points are mentioned here, not over there. Okay. And I literally wrote the more information we read in the author's introduction. And then we read it. Okay, class, we've done the intro. If you go to page 120. Okay, so our explanation will be an intermediate level of explanation, right? So apart from the hadith we went into a bit more detail. The rest of the hadith will be intermediate, meaning it won't be like a simple one where I just spend, because if you want, you can't just spend maybe 10-20 minutes on each hadith and move on, right? So this is the hadith, this is the main benefits from the hadith, and you move on, خلاص, right? It's more intermediate where we're going to talk a bit about the companion, a bit more from the hadith benefits, but not too long where we're going to take 10, like we're doing with hadith Jibreel. That's not going to be that long. Okay. We'll follow the following methodology. So what we've tried to do is the following methodology. The first is tasmi' al-hadith, where I'm going to listen to everyone's memorization of the hadith. Everyone try to memorize. Don't put in your head that it's optional. Make sure you memorize the hadith. Okay. Then قراءة الحديث مع ترجمة. We're going to read the hadith with this translation, so at least you have a general idea. Then تخريج الحديث is I mentioned the hadith narrated. The Bukhari is a Muslim, is in other places. Then تعليقات حديثية, which is hadith benefits. So number 3 was just mentioning where it's narrated. Number 4 would be extra hadith benefits that we can find. Okay, so like is there something special about the chain of narration, or anything like that. Then the station of the hadith, makan al-hadith, if there is, it may not necessarily be for every single hadith. I will try. Then number 6 will be the narrator of the hadith. Now the narrator of the hadith, we'll just talk. It won't be too much in depth. It'll just be somewhat quick about each narrator, because otherwise, it'll be too long talking about each narrator. That's not the point of the book. But like if it comes to Abu Hurairah, we'll talk about Abu Hurairah a little bit. Obviously, if you guys want more information about each narrator, then I'm sure there's lectures online regarding the life of Abu Hurairah, the life of this narrator, and the Sahabi and so on. Then sabab al-wurud, the reason for the narration of the hadith. Why did the Prophet say this hadith? Some hadith there won't be a story behind it, but some hadith there may be. Like we talked about in our Amaliyat, we talked about the qissat Qais, and is it linked with the hadith or is it not? We talked about that. The hadith Jibreel, there wasn't necessarily a sabab al-wurud, unless you consider the actual story of Jibreel himself coming. We talked about something else which is known as sababu tahdith. Tahdith is, what's the difference between sababu al-wurud and sababu tahdith? Sababu tahdith is, why did the companions narrate this hadith? And sababu al-wurud is, why did the Prophet narrate the hadith? Why did he say it? Okay, so hadith Jibreel talked about the story of the men coming to Ibn Umar. And then number 8 is gharib al-hadith. Now gharib al-hadith, if the hadith is translated into English, it's not really a big issue because everything translated. But gharib al-hadith is explaining the difficult words. So some hadith may have some words that aren't that familiar to people in Arabic, so quickly just mention what they are. Obviously, if it's translated into English already, then your job's kind of done for you. Yeah. And then number 9 is ma'na al-ijmali. What's the general meaning of the hadith, the general point of the hadith? And number 10 will be sharh jumal al-hadith, which is explaining like each sentence of the hadith. Like, okay, we've given you the general meaning, now let's go through it, word for word or sentence by sentence. That's what in Hadith Jibreel, that's what we're basically on right now. You know, the other 9 points were quite quick, and number 10 we're spending a lot of time on. And number 11 will be fawaid ukhra, any extra benefits. Right, so extra benefits where it may not necessarily have been appropriate to mention it at a certain sentence. So any other general benefits that we can take, we'll just mention at the end. So that was our methodology in explaining. What I expect from you to write and complete the worksheets. If you want to use the worksheets, that's, I believe, would be best. But if you don't want to use it and you just want to put your own notes, that's fine as well. Memorize the hadith. In brackets, I put for those wanting ijazah. But also, even if you don't want ijazah, if you want to be a student of knowledge, memorize the hadith, inshallah. Mannerisms of student knowledge, consistency and revision. Good. Right. Now, hadith number 1. How long has it been? It's been 40 minutes in this day. That's just the intro. That's meant to be the quick part. Right. Inshallah, we'll try not to make this lesson too long, inshallah. So hadith, in our Nawawiyyah, everyone knows the hadith, so we're not going to read it. So we're going to start with the takhrij of the hadith. It's agreed upon. Agreed upon means, generally means Bukhari or Muslim. Same companion or different companion, does it matter? Huh? Same companion. The hadith should be narrated from the same companion for hadith to be considered muttafaqun alayh. If the hadith is the same but the companions are different, they consider 2 different hadiths. So the ulama will normally say it's narrated by Bukhari from the authority of this companion. Rawal Bukhari min hadith Abi Hurairah. Wa rawahu Muslim min hadith Abi Dharr. Like they'll do it like that. Let's narrate by Bukhari from Abu Hurairah and narrate by Muslim by Abu Dharr. If it's the same companion narrating the hadith, then خلاص متفق عليه or narrated by Bukhari or Muslim. With the same companion. Does that make sense? The companion is very important for it to be agreed upon. Now, some scholars used agreed upon to mean other things. Who knows? Ahmed, what did Ahmed say? Okay, so some scholars considered agreed upon to mean narrated by Bukhari, Muslim, and Imam Ahmed. Who did that? Shaykh Islam's grandfather, Abu al-Barakat, Majduddin ibn Taymiyyah. Right. Another scholar had a different meaning of متفق عليه. Huh? Bayhaqi. What was his definition? He did not have the condition of the same companion. So the Bukhari Muslim, but it doesn't have to be the same companion, according to him. Which is all fine. It's terminology at the end of the day. As long as but you have to know, as long as you know who's saying it and how he defines that terminology, it's fine. Okay, it's very important knowing terminology and exactly what each person means with that terminology. For example, if somebody says the madhab, taking a madhab, the way the Hanafis would use it will be different to how maybe scholars in Saudi would use it. Yeah, Hanafi see it, تعصب, like blind follow. Imam says it, خلاص, no problem. No other opinion. That's what we have to do. The scholars in Saudi, generally, they would say, yeah, study a Hanbali fiqh book, right? No problem. But we don't stick to the Hanbali opinion. We will go out of the madhab if there's a need. Take Ibn Uthaymin, rahimahullah. He would teach Hanbali fiqh books. One of his main fiqh books was Sharh al-Mumti', 15 volumes. That's explanation of what? Zad al-Mustaqni', which is a Hanbali fiqh book. So he would explain it. Because I believe Ibn Baz has got ta'liqat on Rawd al-Murbi'. It's not out yet, but I think it's going to be out soon. Rawd al-Murbi' is like the Hanbali book which is studied in the different universities. That's the main book which is studied in Riyadh and so on. So if somebody, because we had one scholar come to a masjid in Bradford and I was translating for him and he was talking about the madhab. There were some people who were upset. So why is he telling us to taqlid and blind follow? So he never said that. So we talked about ago, did you listen to the whole lecture? Because he explained it as well. And they didn't. Okay. So but the point being is that because obviously those who are in Saudi don't have that issue of like ta'assub al-madhhabi, whereas like fanatic blind following. But those who come from the subcontinent do. So those from the subcontinent, their understanding of this issue is slightly different too. Those who come from Saudi or other countries, right? So because of that, you need to understand that when somebody says something, why are they saying it? What exactly do they mean? Just because you use the same word doesn't necessarily mean it. So I know one brother was arguing, he said, we should call it ittiba'. It's ittiba'. Oh yeah, maybe ittiba'. But anyway, it's a terminology. If somebody uses that and it means something different, you're being a bit more strict on calling ittiba' because of where you're coming from. Because somebody else doesn't call it ittiba', doesn't mean that he's wrong. You're going, no, it's wrong. Ittiba', that's just not Quran. So no, we should call it ittiba'. This is that. No, relax. You're coming from that environment. That's why you see it to be more that case. Okay, that's something very important. I got one brother who he loves to debate and stuff, right? So anytime an issue comes up, he says, I think we should talk about this issue because people are getting confused and people have doubts regarding this issue and this is that. When you realize it's only the one two people that he's having arguments with, they are bringing it up, right? So he thinks that everyone's got this issue. It's not the case. And you find somebody else who comes from a different background will have completely different issues. Somebody from a different background will come with completely different issues. So that's very important regarding terminologies, right? And it's back to this hadith, right? It's in Bukhari and Muslim. I gave you the numbers before, right?
Yeah.
So Bukhari, إنما أعمال بالنيات is hadith number 1. Only? No, it comes again in other places in Bukhari. So it comes hadith 54, hadith 2529, hadith 3898, hadith 5070, hadith 6689, and 6953. Yeah? A Muslim only comes in one place. Hadith number 1907. Okay, we came to some extra hadith benefits. Firstly, this wording of the hadith isn't the exact wording of any of the narrations in Bukhari or Muslim. Like exactly the way it is here, but rather it's a combination of some of the narrations together. Yeah. We talked about the chain. Which is that this hadith has not been authentically narrated from any companion apart from Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. And what's surprising is that there's some narrations that show that the Prophet said this hadith on the minbar. And he also there's other narrations that show that when Umar narrated this hadith, he also narrated it on the minbar as well. But with that being the case, the only companion to narrate the hadith was Umar radiallahu anhu. Authentically, anyway. And the only tabi'i would be Al-Qabah radiallahu anhu. And the only tabi'i was Muhammad Ibrahim at-Taymi. And the only student of the Atba' Tabi'een was Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari. After Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari, that's when it spread. Yeah. How many people did it go to? Who knows? Huh? So only companion was Umar, only Tabi' al-Qama, then only Muhammad Ibrahim al-Taymi, then Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari. Then they say after Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari, that's when the hadith spread and became very famous. Right? How many people did Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari narrate this hadith to? How many? Okay, some scholars have said 700, right? That was mentioned by Abu Ismail al-Harawi. However, Ibn Hajar, when he came across this, he had a doubt. He said, it can't be 700. So Ibn Hajar did some research and it didn't reach 100. According to what Ibn Hajar found, it didn't reach 100. But the point is that it became very well widespread after that. If you do want to memorize this chain of narration, I have put the chain of narration in the footnotes. 102. حدثنا الحميدي عبد الله بن زبير قال حدثنا سفيان قال حدثنا يحيى بن سعيد الأنصاري قال أخبرني محمد بن إبراهيم التيمي أنه سمع علقمة بن وقاص الليثي يقول سمعت عمر الخطاب رضي الله عنه على المنبر قال سمعت الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إنما عن بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى فمن كان هجرته إلى دنيا يصيبها أو إلى امرأة ينكحها فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه رواه البخاري. So that's how Bukhari entered it. You don't have to memorize it, but I think a hadith like this إنما عن بالنيات, which you'll hear a lot, it's good to memorize, and you'll also memorize the chain, and you'll know, where. So the first four people is singular. After the fourth person, that's when it's spread. Also, we learn from this hadith, Khabar Ahad. The Khabar Ahad is accepted. Now, the first hadith in Bukhari is Khabar Ahad, and also the last hadith as well. Number 4, from the gems of this isnad, is that all of the narrators are from Al-Haramain, the lands of Al-Wahi, Makkah and Medina. Yeah, if you want to go through it, then obviously Umar radiallahu anhu is from Makkah and Medina, and Makkah and the Hijrah to Medina. Al-Qama is from, who's got it? Medina. Muhammad Ibrahim al-Taymi is from Medina. Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari is from Medina. Sufyan ibn Uyayna is Makkah and Medina. Also Bukhari is from Bukhara. Al-Humaydi, I'm not sure which one is Makkah and Medina. You got it written on? Al-Humaydi? No? You know Makkah and Medina for Al-Humaydi? Okay. Give me a pen. Yeah, that. Did I say that, yeah? I'm so glad for someone else. Okay. From the gems of this isnad is that they're all from lands of Wahi. Also, this hadith has different narrations, and Bukhari had many different teachers. But he chose that first teacher was Al-Humaydi. قال حدثنا Al-Humaydi. And the ulama say one of the reasons for that is because his name is Hamd. So he wanted to start by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was also Qurashi as well. And the Prophet said, قدموا القريش, give preference to Quraysh. Number 5 is the meaning of the hadith, not specific to this hadith. Like Ibn Uthaymeen, he said that this hadith has not been narrated by anyone except by Umar, even though it has its importance. But it has many shawahid from the Quran and Sunnah. It has many supporting evidences from the Quran and Sunnah. He mentioned a few ayat. وَمَا تُنْفِقُونَ إِلَّا ابْتِغَاءَ وَجْهِ اللَّهِ مُحَمَّدٌ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم until the end. And he mentioned other hadith as well. What's important is that the meaning of the hadith is being established by the Quran and Sunnah. Right. The station of this hadith, there's many statements, right? I don't expect you to memorize all the statements, but I might ask you to mention one. Okay? I think an easy one might be Imam Shafi'i's. What did Imam Shafi'i say? We're on page 124. He says, هذا الحديث ثلث العلم. This hadith is a third of knowledge. هذا الحديث ثلث العلم ويدخل في 70 باب من الفقه, and he enters into 70 chapters of fiqh. He enters into 70 chapters of fiqh. It's a small statement, but very powerful. Okay, the others are longer, so we don't have time to mention right now. Okay, then next bit we talked about Umar radiallahu anh. I'm not going to be testing you too much about the narrators, don't worry about it. Like I said, that would just make everything too long. So I don't want to mention too much about the narrators. Mainly, I might just ask when he was born, when did he pass away, how long was he a Khalifa for, what was his name, when did he accept Islam, which year. That's about it. Okay, then we talked about on page 126, Sabab al-Wurud. We said it's similar to Sabab al-Nuzul. Sabab al-Nuzul is the reason why the ayah was revealed, but Sabab al-Wurud is for hadith. We talked about different Sabab al-Wurud and Sabab al-Hadith. Sabab al-Hadith is why the companions or the Tabi'een narrated the hadith, and Sabab al-Wurud is why the Prophet ﷺ said it. What's the story of this hadith? Sabab al-Wurud of this hadith? Muhajir Qais. Right? We said there's a story of Qais where a person migrated to marry her. Okay. Now some ulama have said that this story is weak. Okay, but what do we say what's correct? Yeah, that this story took place. The story is authentic as it took place. However, the Prophet did not say the hadith due to this story. They're two separate events. The Prophet said this hadith, and this was a separate event. There's no proof to show that the Prophet said it for this particular narration or for this particular story. Right, some of the hard words, al-a'mal, niyyah, hijrah, yusibuha. Okay, a'mal, you guys know actions. Niyyah is intention, hijrah is migration. Yusibuha, what does yusibuha mean? To gain something, good. And yankihuha, to marry, from nikah, from the word nikah. Good. It's important, those who are learning. So if you're memorizing the hadith and you're learning Arabic at the same time, the rest of the words you should pick up just by learning Arabic generally. But these words might be the harder ones where you don't know in this particular hadith. So we'll mention them. Okay. What's the general meaning of the hadith? The general meaning is that we said that this hadith is the foundational hadith when it comes to actions being according by their intentions. And the general meaning is that actions are in need of intentions in terms of acceptance and reward. Yeah, and then obviously we're going to talk about the details of when does it need intention, when does it not need an intention, and so on. Right, now before we actually started to explain the hadith, we went into a detail regarding intentions. So we explained a lot regarding intentions, right? I want you guys to just quickly shout out the answers so we can go through this as quick as possible. Inshallah. So first question, what's the linguistic meaning of niyyah? To intend something with determination. Good. What's the technical definition? To have determination and to complete an act of worship, seeking nearness to Allah. So what does it mean to have an intention for an act of worship? Is that when you're doing this act of worship, you're intending to do the act of worship, so you're not just doing it by accident. Some of you may think, how can you pray salah by accident? Not maybe salah, other acts of worship. For example, if somebody goes swimming and he comes out and he says, "Oh, I've done wudu." Say, no, you didn't have intention. Yeah. And you're doing it to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Good. Right. What are the usages of the word niyyah? This is the important part. What's the usages of the word niyyah? There are two usages. The first one is according to the fuqaha, and the second is the books of tazkiyah, rectification of the heart, and so on. According to the fuqaha, what are the two meanings? It's very important. So when the fuqaha use it, they use niyyah for two intentions. Either to differentiate between customary acts and acts of worship. So what differentiates, if somebody goes into some water to swim and he comes out, what differentiates a person from that being a wudu and that not being a wudu? intention, right? Maybe the swimming might not be the best example, but let's say you're going into a shower, for example. What makes it a difference between being a shower just because you're sweating from football and it being an act of worship? Your intention. That's the first. The second usage of niyyah according to the fuqaha is differentiating between acts of worship themselves. Right? So if you're praying 4 raka'at, what differentiates that being dhuhr and that being asr? Your intention. Your intention. Good. Right. And then that's according to the fuqaha. According to the ulama of tazkiyah, like books of, you know, rectifying the heart and so on, and also many of the salaf in their speech when they would use the word intention. What's the meaning?
Who is the action for?
Yeah, who is the action for? Are you doing it for Allah or other than Allah? Are you sincere or not? That's basically the meaning. Yeah. Right. Anything else from Mr. Riyadh?
I don't know why I wrote i.e. one action itself. I don't know.
I.e., one action itself. Allah.
The action itself.
Yeah, the action itself, is it why are you doing the action itself? Why is it done? Maybe. Anyway, you guys understand the difference, yeah? Good. Right, then we talk about the ruling of niyyah. What's the ruling? Do you have to have a niyyah? Do you not have to have a niyyah? Yeah. Acts of, I think by ijma', acts of worship, you need, it's a condition. It's a condition. For acts of worship, it is a condition by ijma'. Yeah. Except that some of the Shafi'is, they don't call it a condition, they call it a pillar. But, يعني, it both comes down to the fact that you need it. This is terminology, yeah? Okay. The reason they call it a pillar, they say that when you have the intention, you need intention from the beginning to the end. A condition normally starts before. Wudu you do before, right? But if you're praying salah, you don't need necessarily intention like before, like time ago. As long as you sing Allah Akbar, you just have the intention, then that's why I have to call it a pillar. But it's not a difference. Whether you call it a pillar or condition, the main thing is that you need it. Yeah. Okay. But there are some actions which do not need intention. Which actions? You said turuk, staying away from things. Right? So you always need an intention that you're staying away from something to stay away from it. No, you don't. Okay. And so, for example, izalatun najasa, removing impurities. This impurities is something you should stay away from, right? So if you end up getting impurities on your clothes, and then let's say you throw that clothing on the bed, your mom comes along and she washes it. She doesn't know there's impurities on there. She just washed it. Is that clothing clean now or not? But there was no intention. You don't need an intention because impurity is something you got to stay away from anyway. Right. Second is talaq. And if you say to your wife that I've divorced you, it doesn't matter. Like if you've used clear wording, if you said the word divorce, it's divorce. Because the Prophet said there's no playing around in divorce. Number 3, ترك المحظور وفعل المباح. Staying away from sins or doing something permissible. You don't need an intention. But then we mention a qaida, which is لا ثواب إلا بنية. There's no reward except with intention. Meaning, in terms of the ruling taking place, you don't need the intention. But if you want reward, then you need intention. So the first one, turuk. So washing impurities, right? It's clean without the intention. But if you want reward for it, that look, I need to clean this because a Muslim should be clean and I need to pray salah. If you have that intention, then you'll get rewarded for it. Likewise, staying away from a sin. If you don't have an intention, right now we're not listening to music, but did any of us have the intention? Right? So we wouldn't get rewarded. But if you have the intention that, you know what, I don't want to fall into watching something haram or doing something haram, I'd rather go do something good, let me go to a dars and get rewarded for that. You'll get rewarded because you have actively had that intention of staying away from haram and you decided to do something else, right? Or if you walk on the street, you see a woman, you actively have that intention that I'm not going to look, you get rewarded. As for you just walking and you don't even know she's there or not, you're not going to get rewarded because your intention is not there. Right, what's the timing of the niyyah? What do we say? The beginning of the act. When do you need the intention? At the beginning of the act. We said, however, it's important to understand the following issues regarding the time. Number one, what's point number one we say? Huh?
Yeah, haqiq-
Now, نية حقيقة
yeah,
and حكمية. The ruling of intention. I guess too hot, let me know. So what are the two?
niyyah haqiqa is the true intention.
The true intention means that actually I'll stand up for a bit. The niyyah haqiqiyah means the true intention means is that you're about to pray a salah, you actively have the intention, right? In your head you thought, okay, I'm praying my salah, and you start, yeah. Niyyah hukmiyah is that you've not necessarily stood there and had that intention, but it takes the ruling of it because you know, no one's gonna get up and start doing acts of worship, bowing and ruku or sujood, except that you have that intention. So you might have had that intention slightly before. Like, okay, why are you leaving the house? Right, I'm leaving the house to go pray. You did your intention then, but you actually started the prayer 5 minutes later. Okay, but when you started, you just went, Allahu Akbar. Like, you didn't really think about it. Is that niyyah counted or not? General answer is that yes, it comes under niyyah hukmiyah. But did we give more information, right? What did we say?
That which takes the ruling of intention. Going previously, which we did wudu and then went straight to salah, and the wudu was made for the sake of salah.
So like wudu, you're doing wudu. Why doing wudu? To pray. That's it. Did I not mention anything about the different madahib and so on? Yeah, and that's it. Who accepted Maliki? Yeah, so Shafi'is though. Right. There's a bit of khilaf amongst the ulama regarding is it fully accepted, is it not? And within those that accept it, within that they differ that how much of a time gap is it, should it be? Don't worry about that khilaf too much. But the majority of the ulama they accept it, right? Anything else?
The exception for fasting.
Exception for fasting, nafil fasts. Yeah?
Not sure.
What have you got?
So fasting is an exception.
Yeah, okay. So fasting is an exception because as long as you make intention at night, so intention doesn't have to be at Fajr time. It can be at night. من لم يبيت الصيام من الليل فلا صيام له. That's a hadith. That whoever doesn't have the intention of fasting from the night, then there's no fasting for him. Meaning, as long as you have the intention anytime during the night that you're going to fast tomorrow, that's fine. So if you have the intention at 12 o'clock and then you sleep and you wake up after Fajr has started, is that intention correct or not? Yeah, it's fine. Obviously for Salah, if your intention was 12 o'clock and you slept and then you got off to pray, it wouldn't be because there's a massive gap. But if you've got off to pray anyway, you've got that intention as soon as you're woken up, so that's not an issue. But with fasting, because fasting is a bit more continuous, somebody may wake up and be like, oh, I've not had my intention since the beginning time of fasting. That's what the ulama say. Fasting is an exception because you can make it any time at night. Anything else?
Obligatory to have the intention beforehand or constantly remembering the intention during salah and mustahab.
Yeah. Istihdar al-niyyah, which is constantly remembering your intention. That's mustahab. So meaning you're praying a salah, so you're praying for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then let's say you start daydreaming. You're praying a salah, but you daydream for a little bit. Or what's daydreaming? You're not praying. You don't really have the intention, do you? So what is that? Your salah batil? No. That's obviously mustahab. Obviously, the more you pay attention, and the more you think, okay, I'm standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and things like that, that is mustahab and that will increase your reward, but it's not something that will break your salah. Anything else?
What negates the intention? Firm broken intention.
Okay, this is point number 2 or 3 or?
Three.
Point number 3. What breaks the intention, right? What is it?
And then you go through 2 points. First is firm broken intention, and the second is doubt in the intention.
Okay, so there's 2 things that break your intention. The first is having a firm intention that you're going to break it. So if you're in salah, you're like, right, I've broken my salah. No, I'm not going to pray. And then, even if you haven't moved your hands, so you haven't done that, you made that firm intention, خلاص. Gone. So if you, so let's say you've broken it, then okay, I'm not praying now, I'm going to get up. Okay. Then you think, okay, I'm in Jama'ah, how do I get up? Just an example, yeah? Then you think, you know what? Oh, I can't get up. Let me just carry on praying. Right? You can't carry on because you made a firm intention to break it. Okay. Right. Now it depends on the action. Some actions need a firm intention, but some actions, even if you have a doubt. What examples are there?
Then doubt in the intention, question whether to break the salah, and then Ahnaf and Malikiyyah say not broken, and Hanabila and Shafi'i say it is broken.
Yeah. So with salah, there's like khilaf amongst ulama. So even if you have a doubt, should I break my salah or not? Some ulama say your salah is not broken, but some would say it is broken. Right? No. Anything else? No? Okay. Next thing is the place of the niyyah, right? So where's the place of the niyyah? In the heart. Some of the fuqaha say at-talaffuz, that you should say the niyyah. Say talaffuz is different. Jahr means saying it aloud. Talaffuz means just saying it, right? Like even quietly. Some of the fuqaha do mention it. However, what's correct is that it's a bid'ah. It doesn't matter which fuqaha mention it. It's a bid'ah, right? Why? Because the Prophet never did it, and the Sahaba never did it, and there's no need to do it either. Question. Is it correct to say that niyyah hukmiyah is where you have made an intention to do something, but you do not do the action immediately, whereas niyyah haqiqiyah is where you have made the intention and you do the action immediately? Yeah. Because niyyah hukmiyah, hukm means it takes the ruling of a niyyah. Meaning you've not done it immediately at the exact time. You've done it a bit before, but that ruling would carry on until you do the action. Now, yeah, you could say it like that as well. Yeah.
Is single niyyah for Hajj and Umrah?
For Hajj and Umrah, you're not saying your niyyah. That's not saying your niyyah. So when you say labbaik Allahumma Umrah, that's not saying your niyyah. When you say Allahu Akbar for Salah, is that saying your niyyah? Or is it something that you say to start the action? Likewise, when you say labbaik Allahumma Umrah, it's something that you say to start the action. Because otherwise your intention would, people have long, I'm praying 4 rakats behind this Imam and this masjid and yeah. And even if you say argument, you say, okay, it is a niyyah, you say, khalas, there's a dalil for it. Specific dalil, so the person did it for that, khalas, we do it for that. Okay? But did he do it ever for Salah? Didn't do it for Salah. And with the fact that the Prophet, how many times did he do Hajj? He did Hajj once. How many times did Umrah? 4 times. And we've got this narrated. How many times did the Prophet pray? Right? How many times did he pray in Jama'ah? How many times did he pray at his house? How many times did he pray Nafal? How many times did he pray obligatory prayers? Anything narrated? Nothing narrated. If anything, it would make sense the other way around. Yeah, like if you had it narrated for Salah, but not for Hajj, then there may be an issue of Qiyas or something, maybe. Even though the Qiyas in Ibadat is a separate issue, but it would have made more sense like that if it was like that, right? But it's not. We've got it narrated in Hajj and Umrah, but we don't have it narrated in Salah. So that shows that further shows that you don't say it. Likewise, the Sahaba did it and so on. Okay, we had this question, this graph now, page 130, whether actions are accepted if your niyyah becomes mixed, right? Who can give me an answer, quick answer, top of the head? This table you should know, inshallah. There was somebody that somebody. Rafiqun?
Yeah,
He knows it?
So
Right, quick, come on.
before the action, during the action, and after the action. If it's during the action, then if I
Okay, wait, before the action, then?
then it doesn't count.
It's not the action of the act of worship not accepted. Good.
And then it's during the action. If he doesn't, the doubt of shaitan, he stays, then the action is accepted. Well, if
the doubt of shaitan stays.
Yeah, to the end of the action.
So I'm praying salah for Allah. Shaitan's put a doubt,
Yeah.
whispered that I should be praying to show off,
Yeah.
and that stays.
Yeah. It's not accepted.
Action is not accepted. Yeah.
And then if he fights it off, then it's split into two. If it's a connected action like salah, then it's not. Then it is accepted. But it's not accepted, and if it's like if it's like different parts, then those parts which had the thing unacceptable, the other parts are accepted. And if it's after the action, then it is acceptable. He should seek forgiveness.
Yeah, good. Allah barik. Right. So what is it? This issue is if your intention gets mixed with something else, then is that act of worship accepted or not? So this could happen either before, during, or after the act of worship. If it's before, you have the intention to show off from before, then it's not accepted. Because the reason you're doing the action is for other than Allah, it's not accepted. Afterwards, if it comes after, i.e., you done the action sincerely for Allah, and afterwards you start showing off to the people, then the act of worship is accepted, but obviously you're sinful for the showing off that you did after. So does it nullify? It doesn't nullify, but some ulama make some exceptions of بالمن والأذى, like Allah says, يا الذين آمنوا لا تبطلوا صدقاتكم بالمن والأذى. It's when you're using the act of worship to basically harm people. So if you were giving a sadaqah to a poor person, then later on you come to him and be like, "I'll do this for me, I'll give you money," then it could nullify your prayer. But generally, your act of worship, but generally it doesn't. During the act of worship, so you've started praying for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, shaitan comes and whispers and tells you to show off. If you fight it off, it's fine. The whispers come to everyone. If the intention continues till the end, so you started after Marqa, shaitan says, "Yeah, show off to this person," and you happily to show off till the end. Then, if the act of worship is connected like salah, then it's not accepted. If the act of worship has different parts, then it is accepted. The parts which are sincere are accepted, and the parts which weren't are not accepted. So, for example, if I give charity, if I give to 10 different people, the first 5 people I give it sincerely, the second 5 people I showed off. Then each person I'm giving it to is a separate action. The first 5 are accepted, the second 5 are rejected. Good. Right, now we come to the actual explanation of the hadith. Right, let's look at that time. Right, I'm gonna start explaining things a bit less and just start pointing, indicating this, like you need to learn this, you need to learn that. I don't want to make the lesson too long. How long has it been? Almost 1.5. No, we started after 6 o'clock.
Okay.
I think 1 hour 15, 1 hour 20 maybe.
Yeah.
Right, anyways. Okay, the hadith. Right, a'mal, knowing what a'mal means. What does a'mal here? Does it mean every single action? Or does it mean certain actions? Wrong. Riyad. There's 2 opinions. It could be 1 or 2 things. It could be 1 or 2 things. And everything here. If it means it's referring to acts of worship or legislative actions, then it is very important. Knowing what the meaning of a'mal. Okay, I know it says al-a'mal, which means actions, that's what it translates to. But obviously, just because you say a word doesn't mean that you're always referring to everything that word contains, right? If I say to you, do you pray daily? I'm asking you about Qiyam al-Layl. Oh, no, I'm asking you about 5 daily prayers. Okay? So you need to know exactly what is it referring to. What's the question?
So does the hadith take both meanings?
It could take both meanings. Yeah, it can take both meanings. Ulama, if someone say it takes 1 meaning, 1 of the 2, and some ulama say it can take both. Generally, things like this, if the hadith or an ayah can take both meanings, and there's nothing preventing it, then yeah, because Jami' al-Kalim, it can take both meanings. You'll find that tafsir a lot. Like as-samad. As-samad, how many of the Salaf with 5, 6 different definitions? The ulama say, all right. Okay. So, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, actions are according to the intentions, right? What does that mean, actions are according to the intentions? So, the first opinion of the ulama is that if actions is referring to legislative actions, like acts of worship and those actions which need an intention, then the meaning of the sentence is actions are accepted. Actions are only accepted according to their intentions. Yeah? So, that's what I've got here. Really, the correctness or acceptance of the actions are by their intentions. إنما صحة الأعمال بالنيات. That's what it means. Yeah? Does that make sense? Ali, does that make sense? Because obviously, were you here for this lesson? You were here for this lesson, yeah? Okay. Anyone wasn't here for this lesson? Right. Does it make sense to you? Good. Right. The second opinion of the ulama, or the meaning of the word a'mal, is all actions. Any action. whether it's act of worship or not act of worship, right? If they say that's the meaning of a'mal, then the meaning becomes that actions take place according to their intentions, but the reward is according to the intention. Meaning, if you do an act, even if it's a normal act of worship, even if it's a customary act, it takes place. Like you eat, why? Because you're hungry. That's fine. It's taken place. Like it's fine. There's no reward. There's no punishment for it. But when will you get rewarded? Only if you have the correct intention. In simple terms, I know it's a bit technical here. In simple terms, the second opinion is saying is that if it refers to all actions, then you only get rewarded if you have a correct intention. إنما الأعمال بالنيات, i.e., the actions are only rewarded according to their intentions. If the meaning of the word actions is any action, not just acts of worship, anything else. No.
So, sir, when you're saying about the fuqaha, how they define it, so the second one here, the first one there, or the first one here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I explained that earlier. And we're going to get the second sentence of the hadith, وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَىٰ, is a definition of intention according to the Salaf and the ulama tazkiyah. So you see, that's why I did that first so that you understand it here. So basically, the two opinions, the first opinion is referring to legislative acts of worship. Then which meaning of the fuqaha is it? The second one, between acts of worship themselves. Good. And the second one, if it's referring to all actions, then it's the first one, where I differentiate between customary actions and acts of worship. Okay, that's what, look, there's a bit more explanation on the second page as well. That according to this understanding, the second opinion, it's something which completes the action. So if it's a legislative action, then it won't be accepted and rewarded, except by the intention. If it's a normal action, then it's about the reward. Okay. So if anyone is a bit confused with the two, because it is a bit confusing, the simple way of understanding it is, if the meaning of a'mal is acts of worship, then the meaning of the hadith is very actions are only accepted according to their intentions. If the meaning of a'mal any action, then the meaning is reward. That's only rewarded according to your intention. Obviously, if it's an act of worship, then rewarded and accepted, because you won't get rewarded if it's not accepted, right? But if it's a normal act of worship, the normal act that you do, eating, drinking, sleeping, then you only get rewarded to the intention. Good. Then the second part, وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَىٰ. The asl is that each sentence means something different. So this has an extra meaning. So each man will have what he intended, i.e., in terms of reward. In terms of reward. So if you intended to do it for Allah, then you will be rewarded. If you intended for other than Allah, then it's shirk, and Allah will say to you on the day of judgment, go take your reward from that person. So here the second sentence shows us the meaning of niyyah according to the scholars of tazkiyah. So if you go back to that, what we did. Okay, that's a bottom page 132. What did we mention? The difference is the first refers to the actions, the fuqaha, and the second are the scholars of tazkiyah. Okay, then we talk about hijrah. What are the three types of hijrah? The first hijrah is the hijrah in time of the Prophet ﷺ. Second hijrah is from all types of evil and stuff. The third is moving from a non-Muslim country to a Muslim country. Okay. The third type of hijrah, what's the ruling on it? Simple ruling is, if you can't establish the primary symbols of your religion, like prayer, salah, and so on, it's obligatory for you to move in the hijrah. If you can, then it's mustahab for you to move. Yeah? Anything else there, right? We'll say anything else?
If you are in a Muslim country that this, and you fear it,
Okay, then we added on regarding the sins as well, that even if you're in a Muslim country, but you feel like that Muslim country has got a lot of evil and so on, and it's going to cause your religion to become weaker, then it's better that you move to another Muslim country would be better for you and your religion. Anything else?
sorry,
You can't read writing. Fiqh? Naim, anything else? Zil? Anything else? Anyone else? Okay. Right, فمن كان هجرته إلى الله ورسوله فهجرته إلى الله ورسوله. How do we migrate to Allah and His Messenger? I by following the legislation. Is it wrong to move to another country to make money or to get married? No. But the reason the Prophet gave this example is because some people will migrate outwardly showing that they're doing it for the sake of Allah, but it's not for that. Right? So somebody, he likes a girl, so he marries and he moves to Makkah. And he asks him why he moved to Makkah. Oh, I wanted to pray in the haram every single day. Yeah, that's the issue, right? That's why it is praiseworthy. Okay, if you notice in the hadith where Allah the Prophet said that whoever migrates to Allah and His Messenger, then he has migrated to Allah and His Messenger. This shows us two things. Firstly, what it means, whoever migrates, I must have written this down. No, okay, must have said it. What's the meaning that whoever migrates to Allah and His Messenger, i.e. Sorry? Referring to the action, right? Then he has migrated to Allah and His Messenger, meaning reward. What does it mean that if you migrate to Allah and His Messenger, then you have migrated to Allah and His Messenger? What does that mean? Think about it. Even in English, we won't say whatever the condition is, it can't be the same as the answer. Whoever's opened the door, then he has opened the door. No one says that, right? So what does it mean that whoever migrates to Allah and His Messenger, then he has migrated to Allah and His Messenger? And whoever does those actions, then he will gain the reward. Okay. Also, if you notice, when Allah mentions migrating to Allah and His Messenger, He mentions the reward. He mentions migrating to Allah and His Messenger. But when He says whoever migrates for a woman or for money, فَهِجْرَةُ إِلَى مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ, then he will get whatever he migrated for. Notice Allah didn't mention money and marriage again. Just left it general. And that shows Allah, the Prophet is basically degrading the action that when it's Allah and Messenger, you will get reward from Allah. Yeah, the Prophet mentions it. But when he mentions marriage and wealth, then he just says فَهَاجَرَ إِلَى مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ, wherever he migrated to. It's not that important. Okay. Right. Extra benefits. What are these extra benefits? What was a good way? By him breaking it down. Yes, one person he will explain stuff and he will give example for both types and break it down and so on. Now, also the importance of intentions. Now we should be sincere, and I mentioned a few hadiths regarding dangers of that. Number 3, what are the intentions student of knowledge should have? 4, remove ignorance from yourself, remove ignorance from others, acting upon the knowledge, and reviving the religion. How to overcome showing off? Quickly. Learning Tawheed. What else? Making dua. What else? Come on, cook everyone. It's the same guys just answering. Come on.
Leave off the action of your turn.
Leaving off the action of, you shouldn't leave it off. If you feel like, oh, I shouldn't pray because I feel like I'm showing off. No, it's rectifying intentions and pray. What else? Hiding your actions as much as you can. What else? Remember the akhirah and the reward. What else? That's everything. Okay. Okay, and then it's narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. We talked a bit about Bukhari and Muslim. That's fine. Right. Hadith number 2. Hadith number 2. If we go through everything, it's going to take a long time. Let us at least, indicate towards the main issue, right? So the hadith has been narrated by Imam Muslim. Okay, it's the first hadith of Imam Muslim. Therefore, the first hadith that we took in our Niyyat is the first hadith in Bukhari, and the second hadith is the first hadith in Sahih Muslim. Right. This hadith has been narrated by other companions. Okay. That's why the narration of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, that's been narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. That's been narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. But the narration from Umar radiallahu anhu, that's only from Muslim. And there's other narrations in Tirmidhi and so on. However, generally, if you might hear that this hadith has only been narrated by Muslim, they mean because only by Umar radiallahu anhu. If you look at other companions, remember, other companions is considered different hadith. And especially something like this, if you look at the wording is different as well. It's not like slight differences, because they're narrating a story, so they're narrating it differently. But this hadith is very important. We've got many statements there. Umar radiallahu anhu is talked about. That's actual benefit. Right, Sabul Wurud is just, the story of Jibreel asking the questions. But Sabul al-Tahadith is where the story I mentioned of the people from Iraq coming and asking Umar radiallahu anhu about anhuma regarding those who negate al-Qadr. And he said, those who negate al-Qadr are kuffar. Why? He said, I am free from them, and if they were to spend in charity, it will not be accepted from them. And then he narrated the Hadith Jibreel as a dalil. And Nisbat al-Hadith, attribution of Hadith, what I mean by this is that this Hadith is known as, sometimes certain Hadith have titles, and sometimes attributed to a certain person, or sometimes a certain story. This Hadith is known as Hadith Jibreel, not because Jibreel narrated it, it's because Jibreel came and he was the one who asked the Prophet ﷺ these questions. Right, Gharib al-Hadith, أثر السفر, i.e. the effects of traveling. Baynama is, showing time whilst we were sat and so on. Sa'a is hereafter. Amaratiha, yani alamatiha, the signs. Ama is a female slave. Rabbata is a lord, her master. Al-Hufa is the one who doesn't have, is barefoot, doesn't have any shoes. Al-Ura is somebody who is naked. Al-Ala is somebody who is poor. Maliyan means a long time. General meaning of hadith is that hadith tells us regarding the levels of the religion, which is Islam, Iman, and Ihsan. And it also tells us about some of the minor signs of the Day of Judgment. Alright, Umar starts the hadith and he says that it shows that the Prophet was sitting with us. This shows the humility of the Prophet, how he would sit with the companions. It also shows how the companions would sit and learn with the Prophet, so it shows the eagerness to learn. And it also shows that you can sit with people, and you should be sitting with people of knowledge to benefit from them, with the condition is that you don't waste their time. And maybe you can add the condition is that you have the etiquettes of knowledge as well. No. Okay. Who remembers the difference between mubham and muhmal?
Mubham is ambiguous, and muhmal is the name is mentioned in context.
Yeah. Mubham is when you don't know whatsoever. So a man came, which one? You don't, no clue whatsoever, fully ambiguous. Muhmal is when it's less ambiguous, meaning the name is mentioned, but you don't know exactly who. So Muhammad came, which Muhammad Hadeeth, Muhammad Mu'az, Muhammad who, like, which Muhammad? Sufyan narrated, which Sufyan? Sufyan Ba'ina, Sufyan al-Thawri, and so on. Okay, these descriptions regarding Jibreel alayhi salam, that he was, he scattered hair, he had dust over him, and so on. Why were these mentioned? To show that he was not from Medina, to make it seem like he was a Bedouin. But then at the same time, he had clean white clothes, right? And there were no traveling signs on him showing that he was from, like, what's apparent is that he's not from here. But at the same time, there's no signs of traveling. That means that he is from here. So it's a bit of like confusion. Okay. He saw the Prophet and he placed his knees to his knees and his hands on his thighs. On whose thighs? The Prophet ﷺ, due to the other narrations. Good. Okay. We mentioned some of these. We talked about the importance of sitting in the narration. The two ways of sitting, iftirash and mutarabbi'. Iftirash is the normal way that we sit in salah. Mutarabbi'an is where you sit cross-legged. That's called mutarabbi'an. He said, Ya Muhammad. Why did he say the Prophet has some name instead of saying, O Messenger of Allah? Try to show that he's a Bedouin. Inform me about Islam. We talked about Islam, the three levels of the religion, the definition of Islam. We talked about the three definitions of Islam. So remember, the definition of Islam has three parts: surrendering, then obedience, and then staying away from shirk and his people. The only religion accepted by Allah is Islam. Talked about the ayat. Then the first part, which is Islam and the 5 pillars of Islam. We said the 5 pillars of Islam, we'll explain in the next hadith. Then he was astonished, فَعَجِبْنَا لَهُ يَسْأَلُهُ وَيَصَدِّقُهُ. because Jibreel said sadaqt, that you are correct. So the companions are confused. Who's this guy saying to the Prophet that he's right? Then we started to talk about Iman, right? We had a lot of issues regarding Iman that we talked about. Okay, the linguistic meaning of, okay, now I'm not really going to go into them, the issues, but just quickly, inshallah. Iman, linguistically, Iman, what does Iman mean? It means tasdeeq, which is what? Believing and confirming. But it's just any type of belief, or it's belief with something. I believe with contentment and with certainty. Right, many of the Salaf explained Iman Islamically to mean qawlun wa amal. Qawlun wa amal means قول القلب واللسان وعمل القلب والجوارح. The speech of the heart and the tongue, and the actions of the heart and the limbs. Speech of the heart is believing La ilaha illallah, and speech of the tongue is saying La ilaha illallah. Actions of the heart is like fearing and hope, and action of the limbs are all of the other actions. Okay. Shaykh al-Islam added a fifth type. Did I mention that? No. He says speech and actions is from the shi'ar of Ahl Sunnah, the symbols of Ahl Sunnah. How many shu'ab of Iman are there? Yeah, in some narration 60 odd and some narration 70 odd. Difference between Islam and Iman. We said that they are from those words that when they're together, they have different meaning, separate, same meaning. Together, Islam is referring to the outer actions and Iman is referring to the inactions. Did the Salaf differ in issues of Aqidah? In the foundational issues, no. In the secondary issues, a few of them, yeah. Right, some principles of Ahl Sunnah regarding Iman. The first principle is Iman is speech and action. Okay, and there's many proofs for that. And if you study the Sunnah and so on, you should know this. The second principle is that Iman increases and decreases. Okay, I mentioned many proofs and statements of the Salaf regarding that. Ijma'. How does Iman increase and decrease? Generally, more good deeds increase, more bad deeds decrease. What's the connection between Iman and righteous actions? Who remembers? Yeah, so they both necessitate one another. The more your Iman increases, the more good deeds you should be doing. And the more good deeds you do, the more your Iman should be increasing. That's why a sign that your righteous action is accepted is that you do more good deeds. What's the sign that your Ramadan is accepted? You do more good deeds after Ramadan. What's the sign that your Hajj or Umrah is accepted? You're better than how you were before you went for Hajj and Umrah. I mentioned the ayah there. But there are certain factors which cause your Iman to increase more. So you pray Salah, yeah, increases, but that Salah itself, depending on how you pray that Salah, it can increase Iman more or less. What are these factors? The firstly is the quality. Quality means how sincere you are and how well you follow the Sunnah. The more sincere you are, the more you follow the Sunnah, the more you increase your Iman. The second is the type of action. Obligatory actions will increase your Iman more than Nawafil. And the third is the amount that you do. So the more you recite Quran, or the more you spend reciting the Quran, you spend 1 hour, generally increase your Iman more than if you do half an hour. Obviously, this is general. Subjectively, each person, it could differ. So a person who struggles more, even if he reads less, he may get more reward. But we're talking about, generally. Are there any factors that will affect how much Iman will increase, how much your Iman will increase if you leave off a sin? Said yes. What are these factors? The stronger the call. So obviously, those which are harder to leave off, if you leave that off, that will increase your Iman even more. Is there anything else? No? Okay. Yeah. Okay. There are certain actions which increase your Iman more than others. What are they? Number 1, seeking knowledge. Number 2, pondering over the creation of Allah. Number 3, patience. Number 4, calling to Allah. Da'wah. Number 5, being truthful with yourself. Number 6, sorry? Making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How does the Iman decrease? Decrease is basically the opposite of increasing. We talked about this, huh? Which factors for disobedience cause Iman to decrease more? We talk about negligence, strength of the call, or else the amount that you do, and the types, obviously major sins. If a person does a sin, a believer, his heart has to have at least, he should have all three, but if not at least one of these three to be considered a believer, otherwise he's a hypocrite. What are these three things? Either he hates the sin. So he's done it, but he's like, I shouldn't have done that. It's wrong. Right? Or number 2, the fear of Allah that he might get punished. Number 3, At least he should hope that Allah is going to forgive him. Right? Something has to be there, basically. Right. أصل الإيمان كمال الإيمان واجب كمال الإيمان المستحب. Right, we talked about this. What's أصل الإيمان is foundation of Iman. What's كمال الإيمان الواجب? Basically, the obligatory. كمال الإيمان المستحب is recommended. Good. I'll mention some ayat for that. Okay, إيمان المطلق المطلق الإيمان. إيمان المطلق means. Okay, let's start with that. What's مطلق الإيمان? That's the أصل of إيمان. مطلق الإيمان. إيمان المطلق قد أدته. واجب أن مستحب. Can enter into that. الاستثناء في الإيمان. Can you say إن شاء الله in إيمان? Okay. Istithna in Iman basically means, can you say I am a mu'min, inshallah? When we said it's permissible if your intention is al-Iman al-Mutlaq. But if your intention is Asl al-Iman, Mutlaq al-Iman, then it's not allowed. Right? So if somebody says to you, are you a believer? Are you a mu'min or a kafir? You have to say I'm a mu'min. But if somebody says a mu'min is somebody who prays at night, every single night, and he cries in dua, and he finishes the Quran every 7 days, and all these acts of worship, are you a mu'min? Then then you might say inshallah, may Allah make me from them, inshallah. Then it's permissible. You mentioned proofs for that. We should go with the proofs. And talk about some benefits of sticking to the methodology of Ahlul Sunnah in chapter of Iman. What are they? What are the benefits? You're sticking to the text. What else?
Competition for the highest level of Jannah.
Yeah, so if your iman increases, everyone's on different levels. So it opens the iman, competition that you can get even higher levels. Now, what else?
You place the people in the correct place.
You place the people in the correct places. So obviously, somebody a person of piety is not the same as a criminal. Now, what else?
Close the door for false hope.
Close the door for false hope. What else?
Establishes the Iman for sinners.
Establishes iman for sinners.
Opens the door for true hope for sinners and gets rid of despair.
Now, what else?
That's it.
Okay. Then we talk about major sins. How is it connected to iman?
Major sins lower your iman.
Yeah, we talk about how sins lower your iman. Right. What is the definition of major sin? We talk about 3 different definitions. Major sin, in simple terms, is basically any sin which has a certain punishment connected with it, whether it's in this dunya or in the akhirah. Yeah? How many major sins are there? There's no particular number, as long as they fulfill the condition. What's the belief of Ahlul Sunnah regarding major sins? We said 4 things. Firstly, is that they decrease your iman, and a person who does major sins is upon danger. But number 2 is that he's not a kafir. It doesn't make him a kafir. Number 3, on the day of judgment, you're under the will of Allah. If Allah wants to punish you, He can. If He wants to forgive you, He can. And number 4 is that a person who does major sins will not remain in the hellfire forever, as long as he's a muwahhid. Okay. Let me mention these different types of proofs. So the first type of proofs is those narrations that show that whoever does not do shirk will enter Jannah. The second is that it shows that a muwahhid will never stay in paradise forever. The first is whoever does not commit shirk will enter Jannah. The second is whoever a muwahhid will never stay in the hellfire forever. The third is that Allah in the Quran mentioned certain sins, but Allah still calls those people believers. And number 4 is that how Allah mentions capital punishments for certain sins. If a person was a kafir, there's no capital punishment for us. Apostate would get killed anyway. The fact that there's these other rulings shows that a person does not become a kafir. And number 5, those proofs that show that the muwahhidun, even if they enter hellfire, through intercession, they will leave the hellfire. Right, that was regarding iman. Now we come to the pillars. Now the pillars of iman are 6. We've taken the first 4. To believe in Allah and in the angels and in the books and in the last day. No, we're not, sorry, in the messengers. We're not taking last day yet. Now I'm just going through them. Belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the foundation. The 4 things that we have to remember exist: Rububiyyah, Uluhiyyah, Asma wa Sifat. Okay, we went through all of them separately. Okay, we talked about the proofs of the existence of Allah, 5 main ones. Okay, it's got time. Let's finish the lesson now, inshallah. But you guys want to go through it? I think if we start going through it, I don't know how long it'll take. Yeah? Class, but let's indicate towards it, and you guys can just read it properly. And your brain's probably fried by now. Or you guys okay actively? You okay?
Okay.
You finish? Reality can beef him later, yeah?
And
Okay, but generally, look, go over these points. Look, because of how much we've taken, I'm not going to ask you like detailed. There might be the odd detailed question here or there. Obviously, you got to give some hard questions, right? But generally, just know the main points. Okay, like quotes of the ulama, I won't really ask you. It might be the odd one here or there. I might say what Imam Shafi'i say about Hadith Imam ibn Niyad. I might ask you that. But in terms of like all these quotes over here, I won't be asking you these quotes. Yeah, I don't know them myself. I'll ask you. Yeah. The third proofs أدلة شرعية آيات الأنبياء إجابة الدعوات أدلة علم الحديثية. Okay, then we talked about Tawheed. Generally, Tawheed, make you go over this properly. I'm going to ask you questions about Tawheed. Definitions, types, what's the proof of splitting Tawheed into these 3 types? We talked about each one. In Asma wa Sifat, we must have talked about like why do we use, I might even ask you the nice questions of like why do we use Tahrif instead of Ta'wil and things like that. Because these are things which come up a lot. So I expect you guys to know, okay? And then خلاص, what's after that? About the angels, what do we have to believe about the angels? Go over that again. The quotes, I don't need you to memorize. They're just extra information. It's nice for you to write, but you don't need to memorize the quotes. But what do we have to believe about the angels? The names of the angels, the occupations of the angels, know some of that. Likewise with the books. And I might ask you what's our belief regarding the previous books. Likewise with the messengers. I could ask you the names of the messengers. So I said 25 were mentioned in the Quran. What are they? Who are they? If you memorize those few ayat from Surah An-Naam plus the other 7 names, you'll be good. Okay? And then, yeah, Malaika, Kutub, and Rusul are similar. Like the topics and questions we took for each of them are similar. Yeah, that's it. If you want a tick list of what to know, obviously it's the worksheets and all the questions which are there. Let's go over that, inshallah. Right. Any questions?
what's the main, you mentioned here that some scholars say there's no major sins, and use the to disprove that those who avoid major sins, Allah will forgive their sins, but in brackets for minor. What's the evidence that Allah is referring to those minor sins and not the major sins?
There's different ayat. إن تجتنبوا كبائر ما تنهون عنه نكفر عنكم سيئاتكم. If you stay away from the major sins, Allah will forgive all of your sins. That's one that shows differentiation. What's that question again?
I'm looking at this. This is the article. Does that mean minor sins, or does that just mean sins in general?
Oh, in that particular ayah.
Yeah.
Allah, in that particular ayah, Allah. Sure. What page is it?
We're just asking about the answer to the question.
Which question?
It's like which ayah was it for the response?
ليس كي شيء.
Which one is it?
ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير.
About what is then?
I mentioned that enough times. ليس كمثله شيء, bro. That's the.
But you know, you
Just
also have to write the entire poem.
Yeah.
Do you mean Arabic or English?
Arabic, but if you wrote it in transliteration, it's fine.
How did I have it?
No, because if you're memorizing that poem in English, that's just, it doesn't rhyme or anything. That doesn't defeat the purpose.
That's what maybe.
Page 178 on the what? Oh, okay. Okay. So some scholars argue all sins are major, and there's no thing as a minor sin because they're all against Allah, so everything's major. إن تجتنبوا, no, the word is here. إن تجتنبوا كبائر ما تنهون. The word كبائر, Allah mentions great major sins.
No, but it says mind small sins in brackets. I wanted to know if sayyi'atikum means small sins or does it mean sins in general?
Allah, I'm not sure. I'll double check that. Inshallah. Somebody said, do you have advice on how to stay consistent with revising as I'm struggling? What to revision is that everyone should have at least one day a week where you, at least one day a week where you sit down and you just go over whatever you've taken. And ideally, you should have 2 days. One day by yourself and the other day sit with like a classmate and test each other. And if you're doing this constantly, it'll be easy. So exam time comes, you already know most of it. You just got to let's go over it a bit more. Right? So at least once a week, at least minimum, at least it's like the minimum. Should be revising by yourselves once, and then another time, students get together and start revising, inshallah. What I'll do is that before we have the exam, I'll give a week off, and a week off from a lesson, but during the lesson time, everyone should still come in and revise together, test each other. Okay, so ask each other these questions and stuff. Asking each other is a very good way of revising. Anything else? No. I'll go back to you on that question. It's one of the books on the call, I think. Okay. Will the exam be mostly on the introduction or the first two hadith? More on the first two hadith, inshallah. Okay, subhanakallah wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu